Nights Movie Rating King.
Hey, welcome to Tuesday night's movie review. It's me, Sgt Grumpy, Shaun, and David. Good to see you guys.
Good evening, folks.
How y'all doing?
Doing well, thank you. Right, so tonight we're going to be talking about a Blade Runner. Everybody's seen it and watched the right version, I hope. Well, I've got a slight confession to make. I've watched the final cut, which is very similar to the director's cut. It's just a coloration management. And I think Shaun's watched the final cut as well.
Yeah.
I must admit, I did like the colour. I'll give you that. I did like it.
You did like it?
I like the colour grade on it, yeah.
It's a bit sharper than the director's cut, the original cut. I think Ridley Scott is ultimately he's very happy with that version, and he's going to do nothing else with it. I think he just firmed it up a bit more for aesthetics, and things were just a bit smoother. Now I'm a little bit kind of at odds with the color grading thing, John. I know we'll probably get into that more. I think he completed that in 2007. And it got a little bit Matrix-like. I actually preferred the director's cut from 1992, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot to talk about. It is a classic movie, and as always, I've got my lot to talk about up front. So if you all settle down, I'll just start my script, shall I? Right, settle in, folks, because I've just subjected myself to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner director's cut or final cut, and by Christ, what a difference from that butchered theatrical release they foisted on us back in 1982. For decades, we were told this was some sort of masterpiece, but now you'll finally understand what all the fuss was about. And it wasn't the version with Harrison Ford droning over everything like he was reading his shopping list. First things first, this film looks like what would happen if someone took the best bits of anime and decided to make it with real people and proper sets. The whole aesthetic is absolutely mental in the best possible way. You've got this grimy, rain-soaked Los Angeles that's been invaded by every culture on Earth, with Japanese signs everywhere, geishas dancing with hockey masks, and folks selling replicant animals like it's a wet market in space. Scott wasn't messing about when he built this world. Every frame is packed with detail that would make your average Marvel film look like it was shot in someone's back garden. Now here's where it gets interesting for someone who spent 20 years dealing with evidence and CCTV footage. That whole sequence where Deckard's examining Leon's photographs and somehow managing to enhance and zoom around them like he's got some sort of magic camera. This was 1982 this came out, and I remember seeing this and thinking that would be amazing if you could do that. And we're not far away. Remember when most folk thought a Commodore 64 was cutting edge technology? And the scene shows Deckard essentially creating a 3D model from a flat photograph, panning and zooming around it like he's in some sort of virtual reality setup. He's looking at reflections in mirrors, catching details that shouldn't be visible from the original angle. When I was in the police, we'd have killed for technology like that instead of squinting at grainy CCTV, trying to make out if that blob was actually a person or just a very suspicious bin. What really got me was watching Deckard completely fall apart when Rachel shows up at his apartment. Here's a supposedly hardened Blade Runner, essentially a state-sanctioned killer, and he's stumbling around his own flat like a teenager who's just been asked to the school dance. The whole dynamic between them is properly uncomfortable, and rightly so. She's a replicant. He's the guy whose job is to retire replicants, and yet here he is, clearly and very clearly smitten. The film doesn't shy away from how messed up this relationship actually is. Rachel's basically trapped. Where's she going to go? What choice does she have when the alternative is being hunted down and killed? It's not romantic. It's bloody terrifying when you think about it properly. But the real gut punch comes at the end with Roy Batty's final speech. Rutger Hauer delivers what might be the best death scene in cinema history. I don't know if I can do this justice. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die. And then he does. This is a character who spent the entire film as the antagonist, and in his final moments, he saves the life of the man who's been hunting him, then delivers this beautiful melancholy reflection on mortality and memory. It's the sort of writing that makes you realise most modern blockbusters are written by people who think subtlety is a type of sandwich. Here's where the director's cut really earns its stripes. That unicorn dream sequence that got added back in completely changes everything. Throughout the film, Gaff leaves these origami figures, a chicken when Deckard's being reluctant, and finally a unicorn. If Deckard dreamed of a unicorn and Gaff knows about it, then those dreams might just be implanted memories, making Deckard a replicant himself. Scott and Harrison Ford famously disagreed about this. Ford thought Deckard was human. Scott was convinced he was a replicant. The director's cut leans heavily into Scott's interpretation, and it makes the whole story infinitely more complex and interesting. The theatrical release with its ham-fisted narration and tacked-on happy ending was studio interference at its worst. This director's cut is what happens when you let a filmmaker tell their story properly. It's dark, it's ambiguous, it's visually stunning, and it asks questions about what makes us human and that we're still grappling with today. Is it perfect? No. Does it drag in places? Absolutely. But it's a proper piece of science fiction that respects its audience's intelligence, something that is rarer than hen's teeth these days. So there you have it. Blade Runner Director's Cut gets the grumpy Scottish seal of approval. Now, if only more filmmakers had the courage to make something this weird and wonderful instead of churning out another superhero film where things go boom for 2.5 hours. Right, that's me done ranting about films. What do you guys think?
Well, John, that was a great delivery. If you only had that Tears in Rain underscore in the background.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss, baby, as Ben would say.
Thank you. What do you think, Shaun?
Very good.
Honestly, I think you did really good there, and I really did like that whole the whole teardrops in the rain thing. And the thing is, I actually heard that line before, but I just never knew where it was from.
Right.
I've seen people make like animatics of.
Wait.
I see people make like animatics of robots. Okay, doing that same exact line, and I wondered where's that from, and now I know.
Yeah, well, in fact, we'll go into even more information later on that you might be quite surprised at. But David, do you have a little something for us, perhaps?
I have a little something. Absolutely. I have a little bit something a little longer than usual because I absolutely love Blade Runner.
That's good.
Okay, here we go. As soon as the usual studio logos fade and you're left in a few seconds of darkness and uncertainty, the thunderous downbeat of Vangelis's opening title score hits. And just like that, you're pulled into something special. Blade Runner opens not just with a bang, but with a mood. Visually stunning, apocalyptic, and unmistakably dystopian. Right from the start, you know you're being transported into a unique vision, maybe not of the future, but of a future. In my opinion, Blade Runner is one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. a dark aesthetic masterpiece, often cited as Ridley Scott's finest work. It also features, as John just said, one of the most unforgettable monologues in cinema, the famous Tears in Rain speech, which was, as a lot of people understand, improvised by Rutger Hauer in a moment of pure cinematic magic. He originally had a very small piece of dialogue. It was a couplet, as they would call it, and he improvised. He expanded on that during filming that scene. But Ridley Scott knew about this beforehand, and he gave it the green light. He was very happy with it. Poignantly, Hauer passed away in 2019, the same year his character Roy Batty meets his end in the film.
Yeah.
Now, the pacing might feel slow and methodical to some, but it's absolutely worth sticking with. The film rewards your attention with breathtaking visuals, a haunting synth score by the wonderful Vangelis, and a world built with obsessive detail. Beyond its surface beauty, Blade Runner asks timeless, and as John also alluded to, philosophical questions about identity, humanity, and morality. Even if you're not typically a sci-fi fan, there's something in Blade Runner for everyone. Romance, it's there between Deckard and the enigmatic Rachel, played by the absolutely stunning Shaun. Drama, mystery, big existential themes. This film delivers it all. If you haven't seen it yet, do yourselves a favor, folks, and check out the director's cut from 1992, which is my personal favorite, or you can see the final cut, which I think was released in 2007. Both versions are great. Turn the lights down, turn the volume up, and allow yourself to be immersed in the world of Blade Runner. That's me.
Very well done, David. Very well done.
Thank you.
That was very nice.
I love this movie.
It is a great
I love a
movie,
lot of movies, but I absolutely love Blade Runner.
Have you got anything prepared, Shaun, or do you just want to give us some?
Go with the flow, I guess.
Yeah, just go with the flow.
Yep.
My usual go with
Yeah.
Go with the flow, man.
I'm very interested to hear what you think, Shaun. I was hoping that you would really appreciate this, like you would enjoy it. I said to John, you know, as we were preparing, like briefly before you came, you were running a little bit late in the green room, that, you know, if you go to a modern day film school, definitely over the last couple of decades until present, I'm sure one of their study pieces would be Blade Runner for its sheer quality of filmmaking, and very much so from a technical perspective.
Yeah, over the years of me being in college and university, they've always made like references to films like that are kind of iconic to help with like stylize and animation and all that stuff like that. And Blade Runner was one of those ones that were mentioned back in the day. I don't really remember much about those classes, but I do remember that a lot of people were inspired by them. And for me, like, this film was seeing what inspired some many people today, and even like you said, like, it has some anime elements in it, which are, as someone who loves anime, I like that. It's also one of those films that depicts a future, and we're just like trying to compare it to the one we actually live in, and I'm like, huh, where'd he go, John?
What's up,
John?
Oh dear,
he's gone.
Wow. He'll be back. Don't worry, we're still on air.
All right. Yeah, so we're still on air.
Hold that thought. We're on air, but John will. No, everybody's. Yeah, I don't know.
Can you guys not hear me or see me?
No, we couldn't see you or hear you.
Can you hear me and see me now?
Yes.
Oh,
right, at the bottom of the screen.
That's weird. Nothing happened here.
Yeah,
okay.
It was weird. Like everything just went black, and I can only see me and David.
Sorry about that, folks. We're back.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Carry on, please.
We're back after these messages.
Go ahead, Shaun.
Yeah. So I like this sort of like futuristic and also urban sort of aesthetic with this film. It was pretty cool to see this whole if sort of like sci-fi version of like the future, because I've seen some that are like technologically like, oh, it's paradise or apocalyptic, but this is one of those ones where it's like, it's just like modern time but with more advanced technology, which is not something that we're not far off on, honestly. And even like the opening bit, like with the title card and the words moving up, like it kind of reminded me a bit of Star Wars, like how they would always start with a title and then like you have to read them.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of AE's charm there. And I generally actually did, and I did like the film. I thought it was pretty cool, and I like to see how many things from this film helped inspire a later generation with the works like the whole teardrops in the rain thing, and like that alone was phenomenal. I really did like the characters. Like it was a first time viewing, so I didn't catch all the references, and also since this is the first version I've seen of any of the Blade Runner films, I don't really have much to compare it to, like the original theatrical release, or because I think I saw the final cut, so I saw the final cut, not the director's cut. So there's some things I can't really compare it to, but from my experience with this version alone, I generally liked it. It was a good film to watch. Loved the sort of like aesthetic that it had, and I really did like some of the character performances.
Yeah.
And like that I was like paused for a moment, like with the whole unicorn dream sequence. Like, wait, what? I was like, Harrison Ford dreams with unicorns? That explains so much.
Yeah.
It wasn't even until like I didn't even know that was a unicorn, that little origami thing that left behind by the guy.
End.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was a unicorn. It was hard to tell what it was at the time.
Yeah,
I didn't know, but I have noticed that like the guy who looks like a pimp, basically left behind on
Gaff.
origami.
Edward James Olmos.
Gaff.
Yeah, the guy who looks like a pimp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else think that he looked like a pimp out of me? Because he looked like a pimp.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And John raised yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say.
No, I was saying that you, John, you raised a. Yeah.
Right, keep going.
No, go ahead.
No, keep going. Keep going.
No, right. I was going to say you raised a great point earlier on. How did Gaff know? How did he kind of suppose this whole thing regarding the unicorn? Did Gaff know something that Deckard didn't know? Did he have the privilege of some kind of behind the scenes knowledge that Deckard, was something that he didn't realize at the time? So it's very mysterious. It's very the whole thing regarding Deckard, if he's a skin job or not, a replicant or not, it's very enigmatic. It's an enigma. It's enigmatic.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's really the position of Harrison Ford as an actor to kind of like to throw judgment and say, oh, he's not. I think it's something that it should like remain a mystery, and you just leave it open-ended and let the audience make up their own minds.
So when did Dick die?
2019, I think he said.
No, Philip K. Dick.
He died in March of 1982, and the film was released that June. He was not happy in the weeks or the months prior, and he was invited to see a special effects and visual reel before the original theatrical release, before the official release in June of 1982, and he sat down with the effects team and he kind of had a private screening of particular sequences, and he was blown away. He was really impressed. And to paraphrase what was said in a documentary featuring Mark Kermode, he was quoted to say, how did you guys do this? This is pretty much how I visualized this to be. And they knew at that point that they had nailed it. So it's kind of bittersweet. It's sad that Philip K. Dick did not live long enough to see the original theatrical release. But in
Maybe
saying that, he may well have hated the original theatrical release.
Having said that, it's maybe just as well he didn't, because it didn't really do that great at the box office, did it?
No, it was
not?
competing against, I think it was competing against E.T., and then The Thing came out, and
Yeah. So it didn't do that great. But it has become a cult movie, and obviously copied by lots of people since. And it's quite interesting to note that despite what it says on the credits, not much of it was filmed in Pinewood at all. Most of it was filmed in LA, in actual real places. And in fact, some of those buildings were used in Batman. Some of them were used in Inception, like the tunnel. You know, that leaky tunnel he drives through all the time? That's a real tunnel in LA, and that was used in Inception. So the actual locations are all well known. The Union Station was used. In fact, they built kiosks and things, and part of the deal was that they left them for the station to use. So they really transformed the locations that they used by using loads of neon and turning the lights off and making it rain, you know. And really, what a difference it made! It made a fantastic difference to the whole ambience and you know, the whole visual quality that you got from the place. Yeah. Cool.
Ridley Scott did incredible visual work with it. Definitely not an easy man to work with. There was a lot of trouble with this production. I'm sure we'll get into later on or shortly or whatever. I think the principal filming took about 5 months, and according to the principal actors, it was a very difficult shoot working alongside Ridley Scott. Very difficult indeed. The production was actually riddled with a lot of problems. A lot of politics were happening behind the scenes.
And it was really, they didn't have a lot of money either. What was it? I think it only used about 30 million or something to make it. It was like really low budget.
Yeah, I'll give you the figures. Yeah, $15 million. I think they started filming 15, and they started filming in 1981. Yeah, you might need to fact check me on that. 1981, it was budgeted initially at $15 million, but it swelled to $28 million by the time all of the principal filming was finished, and then the post-production with SFX, VFX, and all the trimmings, etc. So it went vastly over budget, and worldwide it took in $41 million in 1982. So the financiers made some money back, but they weren't really happy.
That's actually a loss maker, because by the time you add the advertising budget and then the cut for the cinemas, you're not making any money back off that. That's just a lot. It's maybe broke even if you're lucky, but it's probably made a loss.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because, you know, it is a tremendous movie. And I think one of the things that really sticks out, you mentioned that opening shot. That was used. I think it was used. There was a model that they used, but they put a oil refinery in the background to give it some depth, and almost everything was a practical effect. There was no CGI when it came to the buildings and things. They were all either real. They were all real buildings or built buildings, and they were basically covered in neon to change them. So, you know, you don't need a volume or a massive amount of green screens to actually replicate a future world, because I think, to be fair, you couldn't say that wasn't what appears to be an accurate representation of what the future may be like, you know?
That's fair. Yeah, like if you're having like a sort of futuristic world that's set in, like, you know, later on down the line for us humans, you know, you don't really need to do much CGI. Just do some good effects with the neon and all that stuff, and it works out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very practically done before post-production. And that particular scene that John referred to, with the opening credits underscored by Vangelis, which is absolutely lush and gorgeous, and it's all synthesizer based predominantly. That particular scene is called the Hades scene. That's what they called it. And there were actual refineries that were used that were belching out fire in Los Angeles, and they took footage of that and they enhanced it with optical effects. So there was a bit of enhancement with optical effects, but very practical use. So they took some other pre-footage and used that in the opening sequence with thousands upon thousands of other individual lights. Really great stuff.
So what do you think of Harrison Ford's performance?
I generally liked it. I didn't mistake him for Han Solo at all. So I generally did enjoy his performance. I thought it was good acting. And
he certainly didn't.
I thought it was great.
He didn't come across as the all action hero because he was a very fallible man. He was basically just making do. Which is quite good because
he liked a stiff drink.
Yeah, he certainly did. And his behaviour when Rachel visited him in his apartment, he just fell apart, and it was so funny. It was looking at an awkward school kid being asked out on his first date.
Yeah, the second I saw that, her going to him, and I was like, oh god, they're gonna be a thing, aren't they? Like,
well, she could have snapped him in half. Being a skin job.
Yeah, but she doesn't know it. She didn't know it at the time. Did she?
Yeah, that's also the kind of scary thing about this for some characters. Like having it's one thing to be a robot and you always know it, but then to have to not know it, to think you're real with all these implanted memories, that is a total mind f. Because it just messes with your head. And I've seen it with a bunch of different characters throughout the years, and I think that her sort of realization and sort of fear were pretty well delivered.
Yeah. What about Gaff, or as I prefer to think of him, Admiral Adama? Edward James Olmos.
Which one was he again?
I was
trying to remember.
He was the guy you said looked like a
character.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, sorry.
That was Edward James Olmos. He went on to become Admiral Adama in Battlestar Galactica, the remake.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen? Oh my god, you really need to see that. That is a TV series and a half. He was also the lieutenant or the captain in Miami Vice. You wouldn't have seen that either. Yeah.
No.
So much you've missed. Miami Vice was tremendous. Miami Vice was like an hour-long music video every week when it was on Crockett and Tubbs. Did you ever watch that, David? No.
Miami Vice. I did watch a bit of Miami Vice back in the 80s, and then there was reruns of Chips and all of these other dramas at Hill Street Blues. I pretty much watched them all, John. My old man, I used to sit up late with them and watch Hill Street Blues and Magnum PI and all of the 80s good stuff. Oh yeah, I was there, mate.
Yeah. Hill Street Blues is pretty cool.
Well, for me, for the pimp character, I thought, he was all right. He wasn't there. He was there in the beginning, but then he sort of just disappeared for most of the plot, and then he came back at the very end after the final battle, and he left, and then he left behind that unicorn, which now I know is a unicorn. So yeah, he was all right.
Chris was played by Daryl Hannah, so that was probably one of her earlier roles because she was quite young in it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Shaun.
Yeah.
Here's a tip for you, David. Don't go looking up Shaun Young now. Don't do it, mate. No, don't do it. Some things are better left in the past.
Oh.
I think the last time I saw her in a movie was Kill Bill. It was volume 1 and 2, and even then I was like, oh, okay, all right.
Oh, is she the Kill Bill person?
No,
I think she wasn't the. No.
No,
Oh.
Uma Thurman was a Kill Bill person, but don't go looking her up now, mate. Just keep your memories and cherish them.
Gotcha. No, I really I liked Gaff, played by Edward James Olmos. Kind of, he was basically Bryant, so the chief superintendent or the sergeant, Bryant's kind of like right hand man, or so to speak, to yank in Deckard when he was needed. And the overall cast was great. I think the casting was great. I think a lot of these actors were seasoned professionals, apart from Shaun Young. She was relatively unknown, and apparently Ridley Scott picked her because she had this certain like visual quality, this kind of like je ne sais quoi or star quality that Ridley Scott picked up on.
Yeah,
because he goes for the aesthetics, he goes for the the beauty of the visual stuff.
Yeah.
And so he plucked her from her unknown obscurity and launched her into that role. And boy, did she fit it like a glove. She's such an amazing Rachel. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's good for.
Sorry.
I think it's really good for like movies to try and take a chance with some new actors, not just like hire like not just hire well-known ones, especially like it gets tiring over time if every movie just suddenly starts to rock. And
and it's cheaper as well.
but yeah, like I really do like when new actors or new people are brought into like to the acting job, and so when you're trying to associate the character, you see the character, you don't see the actor.
Apparently, Christopher Nolan thinks that the theatrical release is superior to the director's cut.
Sorry, Chris Nolan, you're full of shit, mate. Oh my God, I don't even think the late Philip K. Dick would have liked the original release. There are several cuts. There are 7 cuts of this movie, and the best by far are the director's cut from 1992 and the final cut from 2007, when Ridley Scott just had complete control of those, rather than this kind of happy ending thing with Rachel and with Deckard. And a little bit of trivia here for you chaps. There was unused footage that was purchased from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining by Ridley Scott to use for that happy ending with Rachel and with Deckard, where they're driving along. Oh, this is great. We're going to live happily ever after. That bit of role that was given from The Shining. So there you go.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff.
I read that was filmed in San Diego, the drive thing. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie. It's like they say, the book was ambiguous at the end. Why would you try and make a happy ending, from something that nobody knows what's going to happen? Because you don't know if he's a replicant. You don't know if he's time limited. You don't know if she's meant to be special, but does that mean she's not time limited? Or you just don't know, because what's his name? Gaff is implying that, pity she's not going to live for long, but then who does? And is that then bringing us back to the human condition? And is it saying, live for the present, because you don't know what's ahead of you. You don't know how long nobody knows how long they've got.
Yeah, there were some great lines from the movie. I should have said, after your opening monologue, John, I should have quoted Gaff and said, "You've done a man's job, sir." That would have been chef's kiss. Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite an interesting movie, and Philip K. Dick was a strange character, because this is the guy that reckons that we're living in a simulation, and had a press conference to expose it, and actually didn't last much longer after he'd done that, did he? Because he died quite young.
Yeah. I think he was in his late 50s, possibly early 60s. Philip K. Dick was a genius in one sense, but he was an absolute wreck. He was a mess. He was a drug addict as well. He had a serious drug problem, even throughout, you know, his story writing. And Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? That first came out in 1968.
Yeah, he was only 54 when he died.
He looked a lot older, actually. Wow. But that could have been the drug use and God knows what, and alcoholism and you name it.
So this the book of this movie, Shaun. This movie is shot from it's made from a book, and the book is called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" That's what the book's called.
Okay.
So that
makes sense. You know, the whole android thing, because that's what they are. The replicants. You know, robots that look like humans.
Well, they're not really robots, though, are they? Because as Roy says, we're not robots. We're not toys. We're not computers. We're physical. You know. And,
Pris had a great line. Pris had a great line with JF and with Roy Batty. Excuse me. And she said, "I think, therefore I am."
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah, it was. It was. And it's not a fast-paced movie. I'll give you that. It's it doesn't have an awful lot of action, really. You got a couple of fight scenes. Leon probably causes the most trouble, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had some great scenes, especially the opening as well, with another character called Holden. His name, I don't know the actor's name, but he did a really good job. And I hope you guys and the audience can appreciate the really great scene setup and how ambience and atmosphere was created with the lighting in that particular opening scene. It was really, really good stuff. Like, you know, if you're a real film buff and you're studying, you know, filmmaking, and you see a scene like that and how it's kind of like lit and presented, it was really nice. The pacing was really nice as well. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I was going to move on. I was going to move on to the color grade because we had a little conversation about this before we started the show, and I saw the final cut, as did Shaun. And I've seen the director's cut, but I actually just finished watching this at 8:30 tonight.
Ooh.
Right? So it was really fresh in my mind. And the thing is, I really liked the final cut. I liked the color grade on it. It's kind of steel and blue, you know, it's or maybe even steel and teal. It's a little bit brighter than the director's cut. It's a bit sharper. It shows maybe a little more detail in the shadows.
Yes. But
I don't think that's a bad thing, because Scott had done so much work on building these sets that everything, all the detail was there to be enjoyed. You know, it's not like today's, you watch a Netflix movie today and you can't see a freaking thing. It's like it's filmed in a coal cellar with a black cat.
Oh, yeah, basically like the final season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, it's so dark. And it's like, the problem is these guys, I think, well, this is just my view, but I think these guys are thinking they're shooting on film and it's going to be viewed in a cinema, which is blacked out, right, on a big screen with a projector. But when you're watching it on a TV, you don't get that effect. And then people have windows and lights on so as you can see what they're doing, you know. Not everybody has the ideal viewing environment. And they shoot the stuff nowadays too dark. And they think because they've got such a big dynamic range on their digital cameras that they can fix it in post. But they never fucking do. So you end up with this murky, messy image that doesn't really have colours that pop, and everything, the blacks are crushed. You can't see any detail in the shadows, and you can't see any detail in the highlights. It's just, I think it's awful the way people are making movies just now. And TV series.
Sorry. Something that I really like about this film is, I don't know if this was like something that was put into the director's and final cut, but something I really liked is that during the film, for some of the characters who are replicants and even the animals, you would notice sort of highlighting their pupils, you know, sort of like.
I think that was an addition, David. I might be wrong, but I don't remember. You could see it was like the red, you know, the kind of red gleam you get when you look at.
Yeah.
There was this kind of red gleam being shown in their eyes, and I think that was an addition that wasn't there in the original or the director's cut.
Yeah,
you know?
I thought something. I thought it was pretty cool. You know, it's like it shows that that they are a replicant, but also it hints at it because some people may not even notice because it doesn't outright state it. They don't just like your eyes. You're a replicant. You know, it's just something for the audience to serve.
Is in the original, says Espresso.
Oh.
See that, and that's weird. I find that weird because I don't know how they're achieving that because humans don't have eye shine. You know, we don't have. You know how like if you shine your torch on a cat or a dog or something at night, their eyes will shine back at you. Humans don't have eye shine.
Our
eyes don't shine like that.
Did they have like contacts back then? You know,
I don't know. It's maybe just it was maybe just done like Espresso says. You know, with the lenses, or the way that they did the lighting. But it was
quite possibly.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was good. It was good. I don't think it detracted from it. I just found it slightly. It just slightly threw me that we would have eye shine in a movie, because it's not something you'd expect to see. You know. But other than that, I quite liked the color grade that was on it. But you favour the. I think you favour the director's cut, David.
It could have been that I've only seen the final cut a handful of times. I've seen the director's cut the most, and that's the one that's kind of most burnt into me or onto me. And but I do agree with you, John. Yeah, there's a lot more of the aesthetics. Is it's sharper. There's more detail that is picked up. But and again, Ridley Scott, he's a very visual kind of like director. So he was going over the detail within the detail, and I think he was ultimately happy with what he produced, and he enhanced and he highlighted to a very, very high visual quality in the in the final cut. Coming back to what you were saying about the kind of like the glare or the tinge, I don't know. I think that was probably an intended type of kind of device to differentiate, or to signal to the audience that, that these individuals are replicants. So we had that signal that was used for the audience, but then the test that was given to them was very different to the Turing test developed by Alan Turing. We had something called the Voight-Kampff test, which measured for empathy, which is a very predominant part of, to be human or humanity, to provoke an emotional response from them, which, of course, Leon Kowalski at the start, he was super triggered about his mother.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I'll tell you about my mother. Boom.
And it took Rachel a little bit longer to complete, so she was certainly an upgrade. She could have been, we were dealing with Nexus 6, she could have been like Nexus 8 or beyond, like Eldon Tyrell's like secret weapon or something like that. Yeah, she was far advanced.
She was, yeah. Oh, right, what else have we got to cover?
Did you know that the term Blade Runner was not a thing? It wasn't originally used in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And it was based on a book called The Blade Runner by a guy called Alan E. Noors. And Ridley Scott took a real shine to this particular name. He loved it. So he actually went out and bought the rights from that author to the name Blade Runner so he could include it in the movie.
Right.
So that it was not an invention of Philip K. Dick's.
Right. Okay. That's pretty interesting.
A little bit more trivia.
Yeah. I did think the name kind of didn't. I mean, I think like when I think of the movie, and like I don't really get why it was called that. So you're saying that the director really liked it. That makes sense. Because I didn't really understand why they were called Blade Runners to begin with. It didn't. I mean, the runner part maybe, but like the blade part, it didn't really. I didn't really understand why it was called that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those kind of compound names or portmanteaus, like, blade signifying kind of like a weapon and a runner. So when the synth or the synthetic or the skin job, does a legger or runs away from
Always
the authorities, and they get retired. They're not killed; they are retired. Yeah.
So have you seen Blade Runner 2049?
No.
David?
Yes. On a few occasions, yes.
Do
and I know
you
what you're
like
going to
it?
say, John.
No. Actually, I'm not going to say anything because I haven't watched the whole thing.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I've only ever managed to get about 30 minutes into it and then get fed up.
Right. You got to push past that, my son. You got to push past it.
Yeah. I don't know.
For some films, you have to get past a certain point in time, and then you get to really enjoy it. It's the same with a TV series. Sometimes episode 1 is to hook you in, but sometimes like maybe episode 2 or 3 is the one to hook you in.
Yeah.
Like 2049 is not necessarily a sequel or let alone a prequel. It's kind of like, a lovingly created additional chapter by the director Denis Villeneuve of Dune and Arrival and lots of other great movies that he's directed, to kind of extend the Blade Runner universe. It took well over 30 years, to create another Blade Runner movie. I really, really enjoyed Blade Runner 2049. I went to see it at it wasn't IMAX, but it was the closest thing. It was called View Extreme, so it was just about the IMAX experience, and it absolutely blew me away. And I think it won a couple of Academy Awards for its special effects and its original soundtrack as well. It was a mind-blowing cinematic experience to see Blade Runner 2049. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Espresso says it's a clever film in its own right, and that actually brings us back to what you were saying there about the soundtrack, because the soundtrack for Blade Runner 1982 was absolutely fantastic. It was just so well done, and it was
all on synthesizer.
And it was, apart from when Rachel was playing the piano. Yeah.
Or there were some additional instruments like a saxophone that was used for the love scene, and
I didn't know if I could play, but you can. But I thought the soundtrack was absolutely brilliant because it wasn't overblown, it wasn't in your face, but it was there and appropriate. Because I find that a lot of today's soundtracks are overdone. Again, I don't know what these guys are. See, this is the problem, because most of us are now consuming movies on TVs. And dare I say it, a lot of people are watching on computers and tablets, right? You're not getting the way that these movies are meant to be consumed. Because not many people are setting up projectors or going to the pictures. When I say pictures, I mean the cinema for people who aren't Scottish. But not many people are doing that anymore, and they're consuming them on devices that they weren't designed to be viewed on. And I think the problem is, nobody's making the material for these devices, because directors and things are still think they're making it for the big screen. Even when it's Netflix, I still think they think they're making it for the big screen, and they're giving us, they're shortchanging us when it comes to a daily viewing experience. Maybe there should be completely different grades, color grades and even framing for people that aren't watching it on a 21:9 cinema screen. Because, you think about it, nobody's got a 21, okay, I've got a wide, ultra wide, but nobody's got a 21:9 cinema,
That's fair. Yeah. Did you get to see the film in the cinema years and years ago, John? Did you get to see Blade Runner?
Yeah, I went to see Blade Runner. I saw Alien in the movies. I saw American Werewolf in London.
Nice.
I saw Rocky. All the Rockies in the cinema. Rocky 3 the cinema was packed. Me and my brother got the last 2 seats in the cinema, and it wasn't a multiplex. It was one cinema that had, an upper deck and a lower stalls and everything. So the place
the stalls
was
in the circle. And
exactly. So it was packed, and it was like watching it in a boxing match. See, when they started fighting, it was like people were shouting, and I mean, it was such an experience, and you don't get that these days. I mean, we used to go to cinema every Saturday for the matinee. So you would be dropped off at the cinema by your parents at, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that. And you'd be in there.
Pocket money.
Yeah, you'd be in there till 12:30. Because you'd get cartoons, you'd get a feature, you'd be running up and down the stalls, having a laugh with your mates. And it was just kids. There was no adults in there, apart from the people that worked in the cinema. It was, you think about it. Can you imagine doing that these days? They wouldn't let you, would they? Or you can't.
Yeah, like the whole Minecraft thing, and
what?
Like the whole Minecraft thing with people going mental in cinemas. You couldn't do that. You can't do it. You could sort of do that in the cinemas back then, but you can't do it now.
Yeah, but I mean, we used to run riot in the cinema, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant fun. Every Saturday morning, Flash Gordon. There'd be an episode of Flash Gordon. There'd be an episode of, there'd be some kind of cartoon. It was just absolutely brilliant. And half the stuff was black and white.
How much did it cost you, John, to go and see the likes of Rocky or Blade Runner back in the day?
Oh, pennies. I mean, really pennies. I went to see Mad Max in the cinema when it came out, and the thing was, we had motorbikes. So when we came out of Mad Max, all our motorbikes were sitting outside the cinema. So we jumped on our motorbikes and went tearing up through the town away to the airport, because the cafe in the airport didn't shut. So we used to hang about the airport cafe all night. I mean, it's a completely different life, It was. I'm so grateful that I was actually old enough to experience that, because it doesn't seem to me that kids and young people get the same opportunities that we had.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see Blade. I think it was Blade Runner. It was either the director's cut or it was the final cut, one or the other. There was an anniversary screening shown in London at one point. I think it was 2012 or 2013. I went with a couple of other movie buffs to the Barbican cinema in London, just off Liverpool Street, and that was my very first time seeing Blade Runner from 1982 on the big screen, and it was wonderful. It was marvelous, because when the original theatrical release was out there, I was but a glint in my parents' eyes at the time. So I was not around until a year later. I'm really showing my age now.
It was quite good, and going to the cinema in those days it wasn't an event. You didn't have to go and fill yourself up with popcorn and juice and stuff like that, because you went in and you were having 2 movies. There was always a prequel movie and then the main event. So you'd always have like a 20-30 minute movie before. And thinking about it, who the hell makes 20 or 30 minute movies?
Yeah.
Pixar, I think.
Yeah, but in those days, who was making 20 and 30 minute movies? Because you never saw 20 or 30 movies anywhere else, except when you went to the pictures.
Dreadeye said in the chat room, hello troll room, he said 10p, 10 pence for a Saturday matinee. Wow.
It could have been, yeah. It certainly wasn't expensive. And we used to go every Saturday, and me and my 2 brothers went, and we just get dropped. I mean, you think about it, my mum would drop us off, and she obviously went into town, and I think she used to go to Arnott's and have a coffee, which was one of the big department stores in here.
Shaun, did you think it was interesting, weird, cool, or funny in any way that the Blade World universe that you found yourself in during that final cut was a world that was ruled by not only Coca-Cola but Atari?
Yeah, Atari.
as
Yeah,
well.
I saw those advertisements all over the place. I was like, yeah, this is probably what the future's going to be like. Flipping hell.
Atari, yeah.
seeing Coke plastic everywhere and seeing all these different like large Asian posters, I'm like, yeah, that's basically what the future's going to be like.
They were in a society that was hugely
Yeah.
globalized. It was almost dominated by East Asian culture. I know John's going to have maybe a thing or two to say about that, but I picked up on Japanese influence, Chinese language influence. There was some Spanish. I heard some German being used as well. There was Korean and other Asian languages as well. And it was so funny. And you find this in Blade Runner from 1982 and 2049, is that you could have characters that are speaking in some East Asian language, but they don't know how to reciprocate back. They can go, oh yeah, I perfectly understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
You speak back to me in your linguistics, and I'll just express that back to you in English. I always thought that was quite weird, quite funny and interesting, actually.
Yeah. The Bradbury building was where they had the iconic final scene, where Batty delivered his speech. It was an 1893 building with more wrought iron than Blackpool Tower. The production team didn't need to dress the place; they just turned off the lights and let the natural decay do the work. By 1982, the building was so dilapidated that the LAPD's Internal Affairs Division later moved in, which tells you everything you might need to know about it.
Less is more, baby. Less is more. Yeah, they really used what they had there and maximized that. It was great.
It's now been renovated, and there's a secret bar inside it that serves £15 cocktails to film wankers.
Like Mark Kermode.
Yeah.
Hello, Mark.
Yeah, Union Station. So if you think about it, that was set. The cop shop was set in Union Station, so they'll recognise the marble floors and the Spanish colonial arches of Union Station's main concourse. They built temporary office sets right under the departure boards and negotiated a discount by letting the station keep the structures. The Dripping Wet Tunnel, that's the second street tunnel between Hill and Figueroa, a 1931 Depression-era project that appeared in everything from The Dark Knight Rises to car insurance ads. They didn't even need to add any grime. They just let the existing water stains and let the echo do the rest. Deckard's apartment, its exterior is the Ennis House, a 1924 Mayan revival monstrosity that looks like an Aztec temple designed by someone who'd never left Milwaukee. Contrary to what some Marvel directors will tell you, the original Blade Runner wasn't shot at Pinewood Studios. That particular bit of revisionist history came from the 2017 sequel, using Pinewood's facilities for the UK shots. The 1982 team stuck to proper LA locations because Ridley Scott wanted that authentic urban decay you can't fake with British politeness. When they did need
these days, in Britain you can.
Well, yeah. When they did need sound stages, it was Warner Brothers' own backlot or the clapped out remains of the Burbank studios. So it was all pretty well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to think of anything else to shoe in there. The
Power Rangers movie used Union Station. That's been shot there as well. What?
That was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. The Power Rangers movie. Oh.
And the Bradbury building where Roy Batty gave his speech was Bruce Wayne's prison in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's very cool seeing all these different obviously they wouldn't be referencing it in the films back then, but it's cool to see all these places that other films have actually done some filming in, when you're looking back on it, after seeing those films. So that's very interesting facts. So yeah. Overall, what did each of you guys think of the film? What would you rate out of 10?
I give Blade Runner a 7.5. I thought it was a good, solid, very solid movie. Brilliantly shot, brilliantly lit. Good story, not great, but good. Fantastically acted. But it's just, I think it's just missing something. There's just something missing. I don't know what it is. There's a soupçon or something that just isn't there. But I can't put my finger on it, Maybe I'm being too critical.
Honestly, I think I'm the same too. I think 7.5, I enjoyed it, There's some things that some bits of pacing which I like. Pacing was a bit took a long time at some point, so it was okay, but overall I did enjoy the characters. I did enjoy like the sort of like world they were living in, and I did generally enjoy it. So I'm gonna get a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay, cool. David,
for you, David.
Loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I'm heavily biased towards like Blade Runner, and I would easily give it 9. I would be a little bit kind of sketchy regarding. I would take a point away because I'm a little bit kind of sketchy around some of the acting choices that were made by some of the characters, like Holden, particular delivery of lines and things like that. I think that could have been due to the fact also that I said earlier that Ridley Scott is a very visual director. The way he directed, and he mentioned this in one of a couple of documentaries out there. Actually, the name of the documentary that I would recommend that people watch regarding Blade Runner, it was made in the year 2000. It's called On the Edge of Blade Runner. Yeah. It's presented by Mark Kermode. I sent it to you earlier, John.
You did, yeah.
So this is essential for Blade Runner research, and it's available on YouTube, and you can watch for free. I think it's just under an hour. So if any of the troll room, any of the audience who are watching this on the flip side later, if they want to do a bit more research on the edge of Blade Runner. So yes, Ridley Scott, very visual. I think his kind of method of direction was not like other directors. It was more like, this is what I perceive.
Yeah.
This is what I want. Give it to me. And that's where there was a lot of clash between himself and other actors, including Harrison Ford, because they were dealing with a very, very different and very often difficult director, and Scott was exploding frequently on set and shouting and screaming, and they had a very difficult 5 months with him, but they got a great product in the end. So no,
that's cool.
All's well that ends well.
Indeed it is. Right, Shaun, what's your choice for next week?
Okay. I'm gonna go with what I chose last week for the votes. Iron Man. Yes.
Told you should play to the audience.
Yes, and sometimes I'm trying to introduce some culture to the audience.
Iron Man's not culture.
Yes, it is, sir. You watch your tongue, or I shall cut it out for you.
Iron Man. So, me up against me, isn't it? I don't know whether to go hard or light. Hard or light.
What do you mean hard or light?
Well, go in harder. Go in with a heavy movie or go in with a more light-hearted one. Mind you, I did pick War Games the last time and that was quite light-hearted. So I might go in hard this time. Okay, let's do it. It's got to be done. Apocalypse Now.
Wow.
Poll has started. And we'll put the poll up on the vertical in case anyone's watching. If you get to see Apocalypse Now, Shaun, you better go in. You better go in.
What does that mean?
You better go in with a security blanket or something. It's rough. It could be it's a rough ride. What?
It's not horror, is it?
No, it's not horror. It's a war movie.
Okay.
Vietnam War.
Oh, okay.
but it's mental. It is mad. You thought Doctor Strangelove was mad?
It's more like comedic mad.
Yeah, this isn't comedic, but it is. It's pretty. I think it's a pretty gritty and realistic depiction of what could have gone on in the Vietnam War, because it is absolutely, it covers everything from the horrors of war to drug use and stuff like that. So yeah, it's
also like that. So like the other film we watched with the with the wedding in the beginning.
Oh, like the Deer Hunter. Yeah, but it's probably a more iconic movie. I mean, I could have gone. I was toying with the idea of going Catch-22, but that's just maybe a step too far for Shaun. I think it might break him.
Well, put me in a deeper depression than I already am.
You don't need to be depressed, right? Yep, on the edge of Blade Runner, Kermode.
There is a version of Apocalypse Now. I think it was. It's called Apocalypse Now Redux. I think it was re-released into cinemas probably 20 years ago or so. You remember that, Shaun?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the. Oh no, right. Yeah. Yes, there is a version called Apocalypse Now Redux. What one do you want to watch?
So enhanced or sharpened up or something.
Yeah, the Redux one's fine. The sacrifice scene is cut out of some versions. So if you're streaming it off something that you have to pay for, you'll probably find that's been cut.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But the because of course you do know that wasn't faked, that was real.
It's been a long time since I've seen Apocalypse Now. It's been a long time.
I haven't seen.
I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah, I think it's worth a watch. And of course,
if he wins,
of course, you've got the famous Ride of the Valkyries coming in on the helicopters. That's just you know where that comes from. That comes from this movie, Apocalypse. Well, the music doesn't come from the movie, but it made it popular in popular culture, obviously.
Yes, it's Wagner, isn't it? Flight of the Valkyries.
Yeah. Right. We're just waiting. We'll give them 5 minutes. So far, it's Apocalypse Now in the lead.
And if people are interested, do check out Blade Runner 2049. Let us know what you think in the comments at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to watch it. For those that are interested at all in my snarky reviews, which I have put a couple of new ones up. Let's just see where we are. We have on the Snarky Reviews channel, we have the Phantom Menace, aka the Cult of Jedi. That's probably worth a watch. And there is All Star Wars Ranked, Worst to Best, which is basically a one-liner for each of the Star Wars movies or series, as we rank them from 27 to number 1. And you'll probably find that my ranking agrees with yours, because I just stole IMDb's people's ranking and used that. I was actually toying with the idea of picking a Star Wars movie for the next one. Oh, we've got a vote for, so it's 80-20 at the moment. Iron Man Apocalypse Now.
Oh, come on. Come on.
You need to pick something that's just slightly older.
Why would I?
Because our audience profile is slightly older.
I mean, just because something older doesn't automatically make it a good movie. Just because something is new doesn't make it a good movie.
No, I know that.
Yes, I know. So I'm just trying to
Marvel's a kind of what would you call Marvel? It's it's very much a signature style, right?
A niche.
As a kind of niche. And some people will like Marvel and some people don't like Marvel. And to be fair, Marvel's kind of letting themselves down a lot recently. They've shot themselves.
They're going in a sort of zigzag, honestly, like yay, no, yay.
Yeah, well, I would say it's more going like, yeah, you started off pretty good, then you started to dip, and then you got Guardians of the Galaxy, which brought it up a little bit, and then we went, whoa, and then ever since then, it's been kind of going down.
It was like okay, good, and then some okay, like, and then there was Endgame, and then from there, there were some hits, a lot of misses, and a lot.
What were the two last? What were the two last ones? The Endgame, the ones with Thanos. So there was Endgame, and there was what was
Infinity
one?
War.
Infinity War. Infinity War was a better movie than Endgame. Endgame was awful, in my view.
Okay, it was not awful.
Oh, I thought it was.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
No, I'm John.
All right, calm down, then, Jeebus.
Yeah, no, I thought
they're essentially
Infinity War was
part
pretty
1, part
good.
2.
See, the problem, and we're talking about movies, so I think it's okay to say this. I think the problem with Marvel, especially when it came to Endgame, was you have characters that are too overpowered. It's like, what's her name? Captain Marvel. That's just a joke. Nothing can beat Captain Marvel.
Not necessarily, but yeah, I do get that. I do get some sometimes overpowered characters can be less entertaining, like Superman, for DC.
Right? Yes and no. Right? Because it depends how you do Superman. Because if you look at how Superman is developed as a character, it's actually pretty good, right? So he has a character arc, right? Whereas Captain Marvel is on. She didn't do anything to deserve her powers. She just has them. You know what I mean?
I won't necessarily lie. I would say that they didn't do some good writing. They did not do some good writing on her for films. I'm just saying, the character in general, from what I understand, is better in the comics and some older TV shows than she is here. So that I will have to give you. I just the problem is I do think that one of Marvel's issues is that they're trying to do too much, in a short amount of time, instead of like focusing on more quality. They're doing some things more like quantity,
Yeah, so they're trying to make too much money. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
failing.
Yeah, like that was also one of DC's problems, because when they were doing their DC movies, they were trying to. The problem with them and why they crashed and burned was because they were trying to catch up with Marvel. They had Man of Steel, and then they struck right up to Batman versus Superman, and they try to shove all these different characters and story arcs into one film, and it was a complete mess. Then they had the Justice League movie, which, and the director's cut for that was better, but still. And then they had some decent movies, like Aquaman was a decent movie, Wonder Woman was a good movie. The first Shazam was a
movie, was it?
I actually like the Aquaman movie.
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment, but I'm surprised.
Yeah. Although I will say that I don't know which one came first, to be honest, because there's actually an animated cinematic universe for the DC characters. There's a bunch of films and for that, and those are really well done. But one thing I had about the sort of Aquaman Justice League one is that it was kind of like the same story as the actual Aquaman one. I need to look up which one came first. 1 second. Let's see.
I think I'm going to have to increase my score to about at least 8. At least 8 for Blade Runner. I think 7.5 is too low. In fact, it might even be an 8.5.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm just remembering how I felt when I was watching it there. Less than a couple of hours ago, and it's quite an emotional movie as well. Yeah, I quite like.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's just kind of disappointing. For the live action Aquaman movie, because the film I was talking about before, which basically had the same sort of story. It was different in some cases. the Justice League Throne of Atlantis film came out 3 years before the actual Aquaman film came out. So, and it basically had the same sort of story. Like it was basically it was very similar. Just like one had the Justice League in it, the other one didn't. It was so
okay.
And also the live action one had that terrible actress.
Okay.
Yes, the very mean one.
Do you find that, David, that sometimes when you watch a movie, it takes you a few hours to process it, and to come up with, it takes a little while. In fact, sometimes it can be a couple of days later that you're still thinking about things that occurred in it. No, yeah, or was it just?
I find that kind of movie genre kind of depending. Like my curiosity usually goes as far as like say something like Blade Runner or other genres, other like films where I'll go and I'll watch a making of documentary, for example, like the Mark Kermode one, like I posted, and you learn like more about the Easter eggs or cut incidental scenes and like other trivia. You learn more about the craft and the amount of hard work, the absolute graft that goes into making these sorts of films, and then the politics behind the scenes and the overinflated egos and stuff like that. And the problem, say, for example, Hampton Fancher, like one of the screenwriters, had with with Ridley Scott, all of that stuff was fascinating. But the amount of work that went into these sorts of 1980s productions, with limited to a degree special effects and visual effects and whatnot, and what they could pull off at that early point in time, it really does help to deepen your appreciation for those sorts of movies. And with Blade Runner, I think it was because of DVD and also VHS at the time in the 90s, it kind of had a rebirth and it made even more movie back. So it kind of plummeted a bit in the 80s, but it took back off again, similar to The Thing in the 1990s. And then Blade Runner really established its cult following internationally, and it embellished itself. It had its place there to continue to influence other films from the science fiction genre, and become kind of like a part of pop culture. And one thing I forgot to say earlier was about Vangelis, about the OST, the original soundtrack composer. Like I think in a way he originated, maybe not, but I think he originated this whole kind of musical genre, which is called cyberpunk or synth wave, because of what he did, like with Blade Runner. We hear a lot of that stuff now on YouTube and in various other areas. It's been very influential.
Let me see. I would say John Carpenter's got to be in there as well when it comes to synth stuff.
I stand corrected, because he made his own music along with other composers he brought on board as well. John Carpenter, and he still tours. I think at his ripe old age, he'll still tour North America with a band. They'll show segments from movies, and they kind of have like a small live band set up to play the themes from those films. And wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Right. I'm just nipping through the work of soundtrack composers like John Carpenter, Vangelis, and Tangerine Dream. Along with
Dream,
with other synth pop icons like New Order, Blue Monday, I remember that. Gary Newman and the Eurythmics. Synth pop was a genre kicked off by Too Much Popcorn. So the biggest visual influences come from Back to the Future, Blade Runner, They Live, Starman, Escape from New York, Halloween, and Tron. Most of those ones are John Carpenter movies, aren't they? They Live, Starman, and Escape from New York, and Halloween are all John Carpenter movies.
I do like Starman. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Really nice movie. Nice movie. Gives you the feels. It does get you.
Not to mention Miami Vice and Knight Rider.
I don't even know who did. I loved Knight Rider growing up. I think I had the like pajamas like as a kid or something like that. Like the Hoff was the man with Kit. The car was so cool. I don't even know who composed the music for Knight Rider, but I remember it so well.
Knight Rider. Who did compose Knight Rider? I'm not sure.
It was such a great TV show. It was so slick.
Yeah, I was meant on that the English guy that was his kind of, I don't know, what would you call him, handler or something? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the poll. So it's 83% for Apocalypse Now, 17% for Iron Man.
Son of a bitch.
But Shaun, if it's any, if it's anything, I loved Iron Man. I went to see that at the cinema, and that was a role, Tony Stark, that was made for Robert Downey Jr. It was absolutely fantastic. I really liked it.
Yeah, Espresso says Jan Hammer did Miami Vice. That's right. Yeah. But for Miami Vice, it really literally was like a music video every week because you had so many different other people doing stuff in it as well.
Yeah, we were in that new romantics era as well in the mid to late 80s. Very cool time in the UK and in America, especially in the UK actually. Yeah, with synth pop. Mm.
Yeah. What was I going to say? I forgot the movie I was going to suggest. I know I'd forgotten the one I was going to suggest, but too late now. So I'll do it the next time. I have to suggest.
Didn't you say like something like Star Wars or something?
No, I was thinking about doing Star Wars, but the movie I actually think I'm going to do is a John Carpenter movie. But I'll leave it. I can wait a couple of weeks. I think you'll enjoy it, Shaun.
Saved round.
Sorry?
A saved round.
Yeah.
You have it as a saved round. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna change my choices. Like I'm not gonna like pick only older films. Like technically, if you think about it, like films like Iron Man are like nearly 20 years old. So
yeah, that's fine.
So I'm still gonna suggest things from my generation as well. I'm not.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But Iron Man's been voted down twice now. So just from the point of view of trying to get something from you, you might be better to pick a different movie the next time rather than just keep plugging away at Iron Man.
I did the same thing with Godzilla.
Yeah, well, nobody picked that either.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
You need to fix your audience.
Need to fix the audience. Yeah. So you hear that? You need to be fixed, audience. You need to be fixed. So what was I going to say? The Espresso Mechanic says The Hitcher would be a good movie to discuss. I don't think I've ever seen The Hitcher.
The Hitcher?
It's Rutger Hauer. I know it's Rutger Hauer in it, but I don't think I've actually seen it. I think it's a kind of slasher horror, is it? I'm not sure. In which case, we might lose Shaun if we pick The Hitcher, because he doesn't like horror. Oh, he's gone.
I think he just...
Did he do that deliberately?
Oh. Yeah, of course he did. Yeah. The Hitcher.
Aren't I a scamp?
You're such a scamp. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. So, Special Mechanic says it's not really a slasher, it's just a horror then. Right. Okay, people. Thank you very much. Is there anything else we want to talk about, David?
No, it's been great for me.
It's been great for you, Shaun, has it?
Yeah, all right.
And it's been great for you.